Welcome to our Stone Cold edition of January 23rd edition of Golden Black Live. I want to thank our sponsors, Triple X, on the hill, but on the level of Purdue tradition since 1929. Tom Dienhart so graciously took his mother to Triple X this week, and that's a heck of a deal. Great place to go. Everybody knows that if you're around Purdue at all. But also another guy that's a great guy, State Farm agent Trent Johnson at trentismyagent.com. You will see Trent at the scorer's table at Purdue basketball games. And the like, and we appreciate them. Also, a reminder: today's show, a good show. We'll lead it off with Tom Dienhart and Dub Jellison, talk some Purdue football, portal and roster acquisition, etc. Then we'll bring in Kathy Wright-Eager, been a longtime friend of the show, and she is a leadership advisor. Still works with Purdue. She started the Wooden Institute at Purdue, and is just a very interesting insight into what college athletes go through from a mental health standpoint, and then some. And of course, on the heels of the John Wooden bobblehead at UCLA, of course, Purdue very much front and center with John Wooden over the years. And then finally, Rayfeld Davis for the Big Tent Network, and of course, Purdue 2015 Defensive Player of the Year. We will visit with Ray. My guess is Ray calls it like he sees it, but a really interesting insight, not only into Purdue, but obviously into the Big Ten race. He really likes the Nebraska Cornhuskers and where they sit. And as of Friday, the Cornhuskers are at the top of the league after the Boilermakers lost to UCLA. So anyway, that's going to be a good, fun show today. But I'll bring in my colleagues at goldenblack.com, who I'd like to tell you I'm in the freezing cold. I'm actually not this week, but these guys are. And we appreciate that they got their galoshes on, and they're going to make their way on Friday afternoon to talk to Barry Odom. So if you're listening to this over the weekend, check out all the work as Coach Barry Odom's press conference at 2:30 Eastern, I believe it is, and he'll be giving the State of the Union, at least as it pertains to Purdue football. There'll probably be, Tom, as many questions as got at, maybe not quite as long as Mike Babinski a couple of weeks ago, but it's been a while since we've talked to Barry, and the opportunity to have a lot of things fleshed out. What's on the top of your list as you have a chance to talk to Barry?
Yeah, we did talk to him, I guess, on signing day.
That's true.
In December. So, yeah, but now we have a lot to talk about, just with the portal, obviously, the acquisitions there. And, I think everybody wants Barry Odom's explanation on Kevin Kane's hire.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest. And I think that's going to be a big question, too.
Sure.
Just Lamar Kennard, why he made a switch at running back coach, I think. And why he changed offensive line coaches.
Yeah,
I think for me, I'm interested in those things. We're going to get the same, kind of cliched stuff about the portal guys. I'm sure they're all super great guys and all ready to impact right away, and they filled every need, checked every box. But we'll get that kind of stuff. But I guess for me, it's just his take on the coaching staff changes. And I'm sure he's probably going to be asked about why they held back $6 or $7 million last year.
Yeah, good question.
Fans were asked to buy in, and but they were holding back. I think we know why they did it, but again, optics matter, and I kind of wonder if I ever even let that out. If I'm Mike Babinski, I don't think I'd have said that, but anyway, it's out there, and people are wondering.
Yeah, a lot of questions certainly around that in the transfer portal, finances, everything. Dub, when you get a chance, obviously what would be on your list as you sit there and talk and hear what are you most interested to hear him say?
Yeah, it kind of goes along the same lines as Tom. Yeah. As far as the portal stuff, I'm curious to know, how different this portal period was compared to last year. Yeah. In the winter, particularly, and the kinds of guys that they were trying to go after and get, and then beyond that, just getting a better sense of the guys that are coming in, because we only know so much about these guys. We can talk to fellow writers as Tom's done. I highly encourage anyone listening to this to go read those. We can offer up our own thoughts, and we can look back at what they did at their previous schools. But we're going to learn a lot more here in the next few months. Talking to Odom today, and then getting to see those guys in spring ball, and we still won't get the full picture until next fall, right? So, I'm curious to know about that kinds of stuff, and then obviously all the coaching changes as well. Just getting his thoughts on that.
Tom, you look at, for example, this week, Justin Denson from Michigan State commits to Purdue. You get a chance to talk to Jim Comparoni, our colleague at SpartanMag.com. Never a short conversation with Jim, I'm going to guess, but love Jim. He put he's about as high energy as he can when it comes to the Spartans. But what you've done a lot of those interviews with some of our colleagues. What intrigues you about some of these guys? And I know that there are a lot of names, and they're just names at this point in time, but they are guys that Purdue desperately needs to make a difference next year. Denson being one that looked like he might have been threatening a starting job at Michigan State, but who knows? And Purdue needs guys to be difference makers everywhere you turn. But anybody that jumps off the page at you guys you've talked to here in the last week or so.
Yeah, I do get the sense it seems to be a higher quality player overall than what they were able to get last year. I think circumstances, last year sort of maybe tied their hands a little bit. Getting a late start, obviously. They really had to speed shop, if you will, sort of like that supermarket sweepstakes show. You see pushing your shopping cart 100 miles an hour through the aisles, just throwing stuff in your shopping cart.
Yeah.
But that's obviously an exaggeration, but I think there was some of that probably. They had spots to fill, guys. 54, they signed 54 portal guys between the two portal periods.
Yeah.
And again, as you said, 28 this round. And I don't know, there's interesting guys, I'm fascinated by anybody who can make plays because Purdue's desperate for playmakers. Who doesn't love a playmaker?
Yeah.
Travis Terrell, the running back from Jackson State. He's not a real big guy, the typical water bug, but you watch some of his highlights, and he runs back kickoffs and punts. He's just sort of electric. He's a real speedster, a guy who can change directions and go from 0 to 60 in 5 seconds. So that's a guy I'm really interested to see if he can make that jump from FCS to the Big Ten. Again, he could be a real difference maker for you, and a guy who can just make a play for get you a first down when you need it. I'm not sure. Somebody asked me today how I would line up the offensive line. That's the one spot that had the most portal additions with 5. And we know they changed offensive line coaches as well. So, boy, the spotlight's going to be on the OL with these newcomers and new coach up front. Outside of Joey Tanona, left tackle, it looks like it's going to be wide open. I think the kid from South Carolina, Stanley, Boaz Stanley, is probably going to be your center. Maybe we'll see Marcus Easley, I think, get a starting guard spot. I think maybe the other kid from South Carolina, Jatavius Shivers, he's a giant kid, looks like a classic right tackle. Maybe he's a guy ready to start. And maybe Mark Nave or Jude McCoskey's ready to play at that other guard spot. So a lot of moving parts on the offensive line, and it looks like they may have a couple keepers in the portal additions up front too.
Dub, 28 total portal commits we've talked about, and I know that the second you say, "Oh, there'll be no more," somebody else will shove it. And I know the portal's been closed for 10 days.
16th. They closed the 16th last Friday.
16th, right. So that's right. So just a week. And my point is that what are your expectations? 28 seemed a little bit more than we thought. We talked about that last week, but ends up being the reality. But are there more to come? And I guess there could be more to come throughout. There's no deadline really for them now, except one would think that the ones that would commit now would not start till summer in terms of school.
Yeah, I think they got the vast majority of their work done already. I don't necessarily foresee any new additions in the immediate future. Now, say they go through winter workouts or the Winning Ed program prior to spring football, and someone goes down or someone isn't what they thought they would be. I could see Purdue adding to positions, but as of right now, I don't really see anything glaring or haven't been hearing anything in terms of positions they could be looking at, players they could be looking at. So I think it's just a wait and see mode. Uh, you know, every year it feels like, a couple of JUCO guys get added in late spring, so maybe we could see something like that. But as of right now, I kind of see them standing pat.
Tom, some former players, and I may have missed the memo on this, that had said Bing Me is saying that spring game might be April 11th. I don't know, and again, you may have already reported that. Have they made determination on spring ball to your knowledge? And I know last year they were around that time. It might have been the week earlier, but you've got Easter to figure out this year on the 4th, and they tend not to do that. Or the 5th, I guess it would be. But what's up from your perspective, or what do you know about how spring ball will be handled, or do you know?
Yeah, probably asked Omer about that today if their schedule's set. But yeah, I haven't looked at the calendar. My gosh, hey, Alan, you already got us an Easter, buddy.
I know. Well, I'm in warmer weather, so that helps.
But yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they have a spring game or what that will look like.
They do,
so, yeah. We all know what those events are about. It's more just about kind of teasing the fans and kind of letting them know what the personnel looks like, and a good chance for the coach to kind of get out in front of everybody and get his players out there and begin his messaging. So yeah, we'll see what they do there, guys. But just circling back real quick to the shopping list and players. There's still players in the portal, obviously, but again, it's kind of picked over already, right? Dub and I had texted a few times, asking each other, what else do you think Purdue needs out of the portal position-wise? And correct me if I'm wrong, Dub. I think we both thought maybe they need another edge rusher. Right now, they only got 2 out of the portal. I think they need another tight end. They only have 1 out of the portal, and you got George Burhan coming back, and fragile, handle with care with that guy. And after those 2, you got the kid back from Wake Forest who transferred in last year, and I think a guy who redshirted as a freshman. I mean, it's not a real deep pool of tight end. I thought maybe they'd get another tight end, and I thought they'd get a kicker out of the portal. And we can talk about the prep kid they got. Duff can fill you in there, but
yeah,
I really thought they needed to get a guy like Mitchell Finneran a few years ago, an FCS kicker who's proven, kicked a lot of field goals at some level.
Yeah,
he's been out there kicking field goals in games. He's been there and done that. Purdue's going to roll the dice, man. They're going to go in next year without any kicker on the roster who's even attempted a field goal in college. Steph Turner's back, and they have another walk-on kid who's back, and you have the freshman coming in. They're going to roll with those guys, it looks like. Maybe I'm wrong. I can't imagine a portal kicker is coming now, though. So I don't know if Dub thinks there are any other spots that they need to maybe add a few more players, but those were a few positions I thought maybe they could use some additions.
Yeah, I'm going to let you pronounce Purdue's 2026 kicker commit, or his first name, Jacobo. I don't know, Jacobo, would that be right? But talk a little bit about that. And also, too, and on a second follow-up, too, obviously you followed up, or the coaching staff followed up with the 2027, or followed up with the quarterbacks as well, and important. We all want to talk about quarterbacks and what that will mean for Purdue down the road.
Starting with Jacobo Echeverria-Lozano.
Nice.
Very
impressive.
I believe that's how you say
it. Yeah, there you go. You're on.
It kind of – it made me wonder a little bit when Purdue offered him last week or the week before, because I was like, I don't know, you got Porath, you got Seth Turner. Why are you offering a full scholarship to a high school kicker? As it turns out, a couple days later, Spencer Porath is off to South Bend to join Notre Dame. So that was kind of the reasoning behind it. And, Echeverria was a guy that had been on Purdue's radar for a while. He came and camped in West Lafayette last summer. James Shebus even went and saw him kick back in May in Pennsylvania, Upper St. Clair High. So, he's a guy that was on Purdue's radar, and, a spot opened up, and he was super accurate this year, 17-18 on field goals, along a 41. So we'll see if he can kind of extend that range. I think you need to be closer to 50 in the Big Ten. But, talented, and he's a guy that I think James Shebus really liked during the recruiting process. The interesting thing now is he's not going to enroll until the summer, obviously, signing so late. So it's going to be a two-way battle between Seth Turner and Jake Weeder, a walk-on kicker who's on the roster last year. can Echeverria get up to speed once he gets here this summer? That's going to be the question, and I think that's going to be a key position battle throughout the fall, even. So a super talented guy. Had an offer from Ohio State. Ohio State ended up taking Hawkins from Baylor, a transfer. So I think that helped Purdue. Just being able to offer a clear path to contributing right away, and I think that's why they ended up getting him.
Yeah. With the quarterback situation, obviously they checked in this week with the 2027 guys, but always a focus of any recruiting class and or portal class and or the coverage of a football team is the quarterback. What's up?
Yeah. So, for months and months, I think, as our readers would know, I kind of zeroed in on Israel Abrams and Ben Musser as the top two guys for Purdue. I think you're starting to see them check in on other targets and then potentially expand that board. Abrams and Musser are both supposed to be here or be in West Lafayette on Saturday. We'll see how many of those visits actually take place
because of the weather, right? Yeah.
But that would be key to get both of those guys on campus. I know, Abrams, Barry Odom, and Darren Henshaw were both at Montini Catholic yesterday, I believe it was. Presumably seeing Abrams, and then Darren Henshaw went to Georgia to see Ben Musser as well. But there's several other guys. Jake Narot is a guy that I really like. He's an uppercomer. Sat behind Colton Gambino at John Hersey and over in Illinois. His predecessor ended up going to UCLA. Narot got his chance and he's really picked up steam as a late riser in the class, and he's a guy that has visited Purdue a couple times, and I think would be a really good option for them. And then you look at a guy like Dane Weber, who they had offered previously. I don't see them as much of a player in his recruitment. Oregon and UCLA just got involved. He really likes Cincinnati and Kansas, so I think that's Purdue just going out there and then kind of seeing him. They did a in-school visit with him last week or this past week, and then two potential flip candidates. Camden Lopati, 4-star quarterback out of Utah, someone that Tom and I wrote about a lot this summer. He was their top guy and ended up going to Illinois. Purdue went out and conducted an in-home visit with him and his brother Titus Lopati, who's a 2027 offensive lineman. So that's something to monitor. I wouldn't expect anything immediate to happen, even if Lopati does flip. I think that's a scenario in which you got to play the long game and stay in contact, kind of like what they did with Jet Goldsberry, and hope for something that kind of opens the window for you. And then Joaquin Kavuklis, I cannot say his name.
Yeah,
I was good with Echeverria, but I cannot say his name. He's a 3-star quarterback from Florida. He's a guy that had an existing relationship with Darren Henshaw, going back to Henshaw's days at UCF. And he was one of the first offers, I think, from Henshaw when he got to Purdue. He was committed to Arkansas throughout the Sam Pittman firing, kind of stayed with him and just until yesterday. And he backed off his pledge, and Purdue, Miami, Penn State, and Virginia Tech are kind of in the mix for him as well. So a lot of options out there. More options than I thought they had previously. So we'll see which guys they can get on campus, which guys, they can potentially make a run at. And as you guys know, you have to get a quarterback to kind of build around in the class. So getting one of those guys in short order would be huge.
Yeah, no question. All right. That is why if you're not subscribing to goldenblack.com, you should. The work both of Dub Jellison and Tom Dean are comprehensive on the coverage of Purdue. Nobody covers Purdue football recruiting portal more than these two guys do, and we appreciate that. So, gentlemen, stay warm, and if you're traveling around this weekend, be careful. But we appreciate that. We'll look also for those of you that are watching us on Friday afternoon. Of course, there'll be a lot more on Barry Odom as well. So we'll be back in a our next segment, and that we'll be joined by Kathy Wright Eager, and then of course Raphael Davis will round out the show. Gentlemen, have a great rest of your day, and thanks so much as always. Great stuff.
Take care, fellas.